One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. What if you only had 5 hours every single week to work on your podcast? How would you spend that time? This is actually a question that I see a lot, or I see people saying, I just don't have time to work on my podcast. I don't have the time in my day to get this done. So I'm going to show you today, hypothetically, if you only have 5 hours a week to work on your podcast, what should you do? I'm going to break it down step by step, hour by hour, and I'm going to show you exactly what to focus on. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Because if you've been thinking about creating a podcast for a while, well, I'm so glad you found this show. Think of this as the shortcut/time-saving version of searching Google and YouTube for hours and hours trying to figure out the world of podcasting. Trust me, as a busy mama of 3, I get it. You don't have a lot of time to be spent, or wasted, I should say, searching the web, trying to find all the right ideas and all the amazing things that are out there, and you just end up overwhelmed. Trust me, I've been there, done that, took home the souvenir. But this podcast is going to help you in practical ways, because twice a week we'll be delivering episodes that are going to give you steps to help you create a podcast your audience can't wait to listen to. So let's get right to it, shall we? So I wanted to start recording this episode by saying I love podcasting so much. And I know y'all are probably like, well, Crystal, we know this about you. That's not a secret. You're not sharing anything we did not already know. But I got excited to grab my little portable recorder and my phone, because that's where my notes are that I'm looking at. And that's all I have right now, and I'm in my closet recording this episode. There's no super fancy high-tech studio that I'm working in. Like, I literally just have my coffee sitting over there. I've got my recorder, and I'm looking at Google Docs on my phone. That is how simple all of this is. So I wanted to remind you today that, guys, it doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to make podcasting complicated at all, because I feel like that's when it's kind of like the fun ruiners, right? Like the party poopers are the people that try to get so complicated that it just sucks the fun out of the room. And guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm all about fun. Like, I'm all about keeping it real, keeping it fun, keeping energy into whatever it is that you're doing. And so I just wanted to say that real fast. I'm just so grateful that you're here listening to this, and that I hope you're excited to learn how you can spend 5 super productive hours on your podcast every single week. So I am a busy mom. I have 3 kids. We have the world's neediest dog who needs constant attention. Like, for real, you would not understand the hours of the week that are added on just paying attention to Wally, because he's just the needy. Go look at Instagram. He's very super needy. And then we just have a super busy life, with a family of 5. There comes a lot of laundry, there comes a lot of meals, there comes a lot of things. And I produce this podcast, which is twice a week. I have a YouTube channel. I have students that I serve. I have clients that I have meetings with, and I'm constantly planning new content and future projects. So when I started thinking about, man, I really wish I would have known, if I only had 5 hours a week, like, how could I be the most productive with that? So that's what I wanted to share today. But I wanted to preface this with saying this is really for someone who is only producing 1 episode a week. You could be producing 2 if you have some of these other things like really honed in, like you're dialed in on your editing and everything else. But I'm mostly sharing this with brand new podcasters. Like you've been doing this for less than a year, and you're struggling to really capitalize on the time that you have. So I'm just going to dive in. If you only have 5 hours a week, this is how I want you spending your time. So hour number 1. And okay, hang on, back up before we really dive into it. This is assuming that you could take 1 hour Monday through Friday, not even on the weekend, to work on your podcast. Okay? Like, this doesn't mean you have to sit down for 5 hours straight and do all of this. This isn't ideal to sit down and do this in one stretch, because you would get really tired. And I think you can be more productive if you just focus on one task at a time. But I wanted to make sure that you understood that I'm coming at this with the thought of, if you only had 1 hour for 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, to spend on your podcast, that would be 5 hours total in a week. This is what I want you to do. So number 1, I want you to work on your content planning. That is first and foremost, okay? And this is where a lot of people just kind of skip through this and they're just like, oh, I'll wing it, I'll figure it out. I could say that because I've done that for a long time, and it really pays off in the end if you plan your content ahead of time, so you have an idea of what you're going to talk about, but also you have a rough outline, because that makes the recording process easier. It helps you stay on topic, which in essence makes your editing easier. Because if you start going down 15 different rabbit holes that have nothing to do with what you're actually supposed to talk about, then it makes your episode longer, it makes your editing process longer, and all the things. So really planning your content ahead of time can save you so much time. So that's hour number 1. And this could include keyword research if you are focusing on SEO for your podcast. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll link to the SEO for your podcast episode in the show notes. If your content planning consists doing research, like in other online communities. I know I recently taught in a recent masterclass about how you can use Facebook groups to really hone in your message and figure out
what people are asking for. What kind of content should you be providing for them? And then surveying your audience. That's another way that I content plan. I ask questions all the time in our Profit Podcast online community. I'm always asking questions like, hey, if I were to do a training about this, what do you guys think? Or tell me some of the questions that you have as you're going along this journey. So if you haven't joined our Facebook group, that's a fantastic place to get started for some ideas. Hop in there and ask some questions when it comes to content planning. But that is the first thing, the first hour of your 5 hours, I want you to spend content planning. And maybe you're saying, Crystal, that sounds like a lot of time to content plan for an hour. Well, if you have a lot of stuff coming up on your plate, then this is a great time to plan not just one episode. I don't want you just thinking about what's going on tomorrow. I want you planning for, okay, I plan tomorrow. What is next week's podcast going to be about? Or what is this entire month? Guys, you could plan an entire month of podcasting in an hour. So if you have 1 hour a week to dedicate to content planning, man, you could get so far ahead. And then when one of your kids gets sick, or all of a sudden, somebody comes into town unexpectedly and you have visitors and it kind of throws your whole schedule off. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We're about to be in the holiday season. We know what it's like when our schedules get kind of, jacked up from school schedules and just visiting people and going out of town, all the things but you'll be prepared if you spend time doing some serious content planning. So that is the first hour of the 5 hours that you're going to work on your podcast. The next hour is actual content creation. So that's number 2, content creation. Now this involves actually recording your podcast, creating it, and then whether that is solo episodes or interviewing people. So I will use that interchangeably when it comes to content creation. Sometimes I do interviews for this podcast. Sometimes I do solo episodes. It just depends on what's going on with my schedule. But if I can look at my week and say, okay, I have 1 hour on Tuesday, what do I need to spend doing for content creation? And I realize, okay, I don't have any interviews, so I'm going to record a solo episode during that hour on Tuesday. And then I make it happen. And then if you have, let's say you do shorter interviews, what if you could squish in 2 30-minute interviews into one day? Guys, that's 2 weeks worth of content if you only publish once a week. That's 2 episodes. That's half of a month that you can knock out in a single hour. Now, I'm not saying you have to do those back to back, but I'm saying if you do 2 30-minute interviews during the week, then that's an hour of content creation. Do y'all see kind of where I'm going with this? Don't think of it as I have to sit down for 5 hours straight and work on my podcast. No one's asking you to do that, and that's not really realistic, to be honest. I work on this stuff here and there, little intermittent breaks that I have throughout the day. Or maybe I went to the gym today and I ran and I wasn't able to lift weights today. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to walk on the treadmill and spat out some ideas. And that is actually where this podcast episode came from. It came from me brainstorming while I was walking on the treadmill, typing in my Google Docs. I was hoping one of the workers in the gym wasn't going to be like, get off your phone while you're walking. That's a hazard. But no one said anything. So don't go telling on me, guys. But then the other thing that you can do within your content creation hour is batching. So I've touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I hit that home, because if you're saying, Crystal, I only record 15-minute episodes, so I don't need a whole hour of content creation. This goes back to, you could record a few episodes during an hour. If all you have is 15-minute episodes, but you have an hour of content creation, record a few episodes, because then you're going to be more on top of things. It's always better to be ahead of the game, guys. It's always better because it makes life easier. It gives you the ability to really talk about your podcast and market it. A lot of people say that they don't have time to market their podcast, and it's because they're constantly
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Trying to just record their podcast, right? It's being very reactive and not proactive in the process. So that is hour number 2. So hour number 1 is content planning. Hour number 2 is content creation. Hour number 3 is editing and producing. So I'm going to step up on my soapbox for a second. Just bear with me. If you have a 30-minute podcast episode, I do not want you spending more than 1 hour at the max editing your podcast. Okay? So I've seen posts. I've seen what y'all say in Facebook groups, and you're like, it takes me 4 hours to edit a 30-minute podcast episode. You are doing something wrong, okay? It should not take you that long to edit your podcast. And I know, I can hear it. I can hear it in your voice right now. But Crystal, I breathed too heavily into the microphone. I said the word too many times. Or I said something really weird when I shouldn't have said it that way. I should have said it this way or this or that. Guys, it's okay. You can mess up. I don't know who put the message out there that you have to be a robot and you cannot just speak like you would if you were standing next to someone in person. And I've said this before, but I would not go back while I'm talking to someone and say, oh, I'm sorry, hang on, can we just erase that from your message? Let's do like the whole Men in Black wand thing. Forget this entire conversation happened. Let me start over because I said the word or I breathed a little bit heavier than I really wanted to. Guys, please don't over edit yourself. I understand if the volume is jacked up or if you totally lost your train of thought and you really did mess up. I get that. Trust me, I do. I edit that stuff out too. But if you have a 30-minute podcast episode, you don't need to be taking longer than an hour to edit it. Okay? This is especially true if you're just getting started because I've seen so many people spend way too much time editing. And you're going to get better as you go along. The more episodes that you put out, you won't say some of that stuff as much. Okay? You won't mess up as much as you do in your first few episodes. Guys, we're over 100 episodes in of this podcast. And I'm telling you right now, if I would have tried to make my first 20 episodes be perfect with no flaws, nothing messed up, you would not be listening to this podcast. You wouldn't. You wouldn't hear anything that I have to say because I would have quit after 20 episodes. I can rest assured you that. So don't put so much pressure on yourself. But you should spend some time getting in there, getting familiar with how you want to edit, how you want the flow of your show to be, and then done is better than perfect. You're going to get better at this as you go along. So I'm stepping off my soapbox. That's my thing. That's my message. I'm sticking to it. But that is how you should spend the third hour if you only have 5 hours a week, editing and producing. And when I say producing, I didn't really go more into that, but producing is, exporting it and uploading it into your podcast hosting site as well. But that brings me to hour number 4, which is promoting, because you can't promote until you've actually put your content out there. So promoting your podcast is, I have lots of episodes that I'll link to in the show notes about marketing. If you're just getting started and you're like, Crystal, I'm just trying to record. I'm just trying to understand all this, like how everything works together. And you're that other person that said, I'm just trying to record. I don't have time to market. I don't even promote my stuff because I'm just trying to keep my head above water. Well, that's why we're talking about this here today, because I want you to buy yourself some time. I want you to have time to promote your show, because it doesn't do anybody good if you create this amazing, mind-blowing piece of content and no one knows about it. No one hears it because you're just trying to keep your head above water and you've never told anybody that you even have a podcast. Like your mom doesn't even know you have a podcast because you literally have not, no one knows about it. So what you can do in your hour of promoting, so if you only have 5 hours a week, during this hour, I want you to work on sound bites and social posts and your website or your show notes. So when I say sound bites and social posts, I am not talking about getting on social media and playing around. No, I'm not talking about even talking to people at this point. I'm talking about creating content to promote your stuff on social media. So this isn't even getting onto the platform. It's creating the graphics or the videos or the, whatever it is, how you're going to promote your show. I want you to spend time actually creating it. So if you have a template, I have a template for everything I put out on social media as far as my content promotion, even my sound bites and the template, the graphic that I use. Yeah, I have templates for all that stuff, guys. I'm not reinventing the wheel every single week. I go in, I literally create a copy of whatever I put out last week, and then I change it to the new stuff. Okay, I'm working smarter, not harder. So I want you spending time doing these things, but not on social media. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about the promotion hour. The promotion hour is for creating your marketing materials, creating your promotional materials, and what that's going to look like. Or it could be scheduling it, like actually on paper or whatever kind of calendar you use to work on your promotional stuff. I want you to plan that out as well. If that's going to help you stick to it and be consistent, then that's what you should be doing. But I'm not talking about engaging or mindless scrolling. I want you to dedicate 1 hour every single week to how you're going to promote the episode you're putting out, or episodes if you have a lot of shorter episodes. Okay, so that's number 4. So let's recap real fast. So we have content planning, number 1, content creation, number 2, editing and producing, number 3, promoting, number 4, and then the last hour. Okay, this is once you've done all of that other stuff. I want you to engage. This is where I want you to go on social media. This is where I want you to post, or let's say you're using, see, I'm just making up words now. You're using a scheduling app, or what's cool, if y'all didn't know this, you can go to facebook.com/creator studio, and you can schedule out your Instagram post, your IGTV, your Insta stories. You can schedule out Facebook. Like, you can do all kinds of cool stuff with the Creator Studio. It is a free Facebook I don't know if you call it integration, an application, whatever it is, but it is amazing. And that is where I started scheduling all of my Instagram posts from there. So I want you to engage on social media after you put your actual post out, whether it's a video or a graphic, a soundbite, whatever it is that you're putting out there. This is when I want you to engage. When people start talking, they're asking you questions like, oh, how can I listen to this? Or maybe they have some insight. Maybe they already listened to it, and that's fantastic. But then I want you to engage. I want you to engage in groups. Now, I've said this before. I don't want you going in and spamming a bunch of people in Facebook groups. That's not cool, guys. That's not a way to make friends, okay? I don't want you doing that, but I do want you to be helpful and insightful. And then if you are able to share, let's say, a podcast episode in a group, say, oh, I see that you asked a question about naming your podcast. Here, I have a podcast episode that is 4 things to consider before you name your podcast. Boom. I offered help. I offered some insight, and I was able to share with this person, even if it's just in a private message, it's not actually in the group. I can send them something, and hopefully, they'll hop on over and listen to the podcast. But I want you to engage for 1 hour. 1 hour. I'm not saying you should only be on social media for 1 hour, but I'm saying that you should have one intentional hour every single week that you're doing this kind of stuff. Now, typically I will do this in chunks throughout the week. So I normally don't just sit down and just engage with people for an hour straight. It looks like 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And sometimes it is, 20 or 30 minutes going back and forth with a few people in a group. And this looks different for me, but if you're just getting started, I want you to dedicate an hour of being very intentional, talking to potential listeners or potential clients, people that could be a partnership or a future collaboration. So this is actually where the hours start over. So I think of this almost like a story loop, right? Like we started at hour 1, now we're at hour 5, but we're using all of this engaging material. When you're actually talking to people back and forth, I want you to go from hour 5 back to hour 1. So when you sit down the next week to do your content planning, go back and say, man, what were the conversations that I was having? What were the questions people were asking? And then maybe that's where you start your research. You go back and you ask those people questions. And then it's like, I'll have to show this in the show notes, but really it's just one continuous loop. It's the same cycle every single week. And this is how I plan content. And this is how you can do podcasting in 5 hours a week. I know, like, if you're just now brand new to this, you're like, Crystal, oh my gosh, it's taking me 20 hours a week just to get set up and do all the things and understand how everything works. And I get that. There's a very big learning curve in the beginning if you're brand new to everything in the online space. I get that. I totally understand. But I'm saying once you have a podcast established and you're getting in the rhythm, you got this going, and you only have 5 hours a week to dedicate to your podcast, this is how I want you to spend it. I don't want you spending so much time editing. I don't want you spending so much time just planning and not actually doing anything. I want you to be very strategic and set a timer. Set a timer on your phone. Set a timer. If you have an Alexa, oh my gosh, y'all, we have an Alexa in our kitchen, and she is literally my kitchen timer when it comes to cooking. Like I would burn everything if it wasn't for her because I forget. And so, my hands are usually messy, and I'm like, oh, I got to set a timer. And I'm like, oh, wait, Alexa, set a timer for 10 minutes. So if you have one of those, you can tell Siri to do it on your phone. You say, hey, Siri, set a timer for 10 minutes, and boom, done. You've done your content planning for 10 minutes out of the day. And then you have to do it again. You're waiting in the car line to go pick up the kids. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Boom. 10 minutes is done. Use tally marks if you need to, but I want you to be very intentional with your time. That is the only way this gets done, okay? You can't just sit down and hope that, if I just sit in the right chair, the right time of day, that all the magical stardust will fall upon me and all of a sudden I will have a magical podcast. That is not how this works. So if someone told you that, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that is not how this works. You got to work at it. But you can do it. You can do it, even if you only have a limited amount of time. I know that you can do this, and I'm here for you, cheering you on every step of the way. So that does it for this episode. So if this is your first time tuning in, I hope you enjoyed this because I love creating content that's super practical and really speaks to the person that I was when I first started podcasting and answers the questions that honestly I was too afraid to ask people because I thought I would look stupid or I thought I was saying the wrong thing. But here we are today in my closet surrounded by laundry, and I don't really care about looking stupid anymore. So I'm happy to share with you all the things that I've learned on this podcasting journey. So go check out the show notes at crystalprofit.com/episode 111. How are we already on 111 episodes? Like, guys, this is blowing my mind. This is so much fun. I love doing this. I hope that you enjoy this podcast as well. If you do, I would love for you to go wherever you're listening to this and leave us a rating and a review. You can tell us your favorite takeaway from this episode. Take a screenshot and share it out on social media and tag me. I am everywhere at Crystal Profit TX. Crystal with a K, Profit with 2 F's and 2 T's, and TX like the big O state of Texas. Yes, I did just say big O, and it's something my husband's cousin loves to make fun of me because I say big O, but I mean, I got a big O podcast, guys. Like, this is what I do. But anyway, that is all I have for you today. So remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.
Hey, Profit Podcast listeners, thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.